The Anniston Police Department in Alabama has just suspended 2 police officers for their active involvement in a KKK group. Now, one of the officers, Josh Dogrell, is a lieutenant on the force. He is also the founder and chair of his Area League of the South chapter. Now, if you're not familiar what League of the South is, or LOS, it's a white supremacist organization that calls for southern states to secede and establish a Christian theocratic state run by Anglo-Celtics. So at a recent LOS meeting, Dogrell was recorded saying that, this is really interesting, the vast majority of men in uniform are aware that they're Southerners, and kith and kin comes before illegal national mandates. Now, the people who received this video, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a civil rights advocacy group, said that the concept of kith and kin comes from an explicitly racist ideology called kinism, which calls for laws against racial intermarriage, an end to non-white immigration, expelling all aliens, to include all Jews and Arabs, and restricting the right to vote to white landholding men over the age of 21. So now Dogrell was open about his membership, and he talked to the chief of Anniston Police about his membership. And the chief responded, "We pretty much think like you do," which is pretty interesting. Now, Anniston police officials have come out and released a statement saying that Lieutenant Brown, who is another member of the police department who was also involved with this group, and Lieutenant Dogrell do not speak for the city of Anniston nor the Anniston Police Department. The city of Anniston has commenced an investigation into this matter and will work diligently to ensure the appropriate action is taken.
In the beginning, the city manager, Brian Johnson, said, well, everybody's got, their right to think whatever they think. And he's like, even if they were in the KKK, I mean, they'd have a right to think that, right? We're all Americans. Well, if you're policing minorities and we know you're in the KKK or the League of the South, I'm not sure you have that same right, right? Yeah. It's not how it works, right? You have the right to be as racist as you like. You don't have the right to work for the government with a gun and a badge where you get to have power over certain groups of people that you have expressly said you hate. Right. Right? So look, part of these guys are goofy. These are like the evil Dungeon and Dragons guys. Like, because they love to have like their cutesy like kith and kin and code words and all this stupid stuff that they I bet you these guys dress up in kilts. Right? Like,
why you have to throw D&D players?
Yeah, I know. I'm throwing the Scottish under the bus. I'm throwing D&D players under the bus. Sorry about that. But like, they're goofballs. Like, they get together in their basement and they're like, oh, kith and kin and cults and blah, 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 right? LOS, LOL, right? Okay, now, but it's also incredibly dangerous because, to me, this was the most interesting quote. City Council member David Reddick said, in a post-Trayvon Martin society, it creates a whole new set of challenges when you have a city that's over 50% minority that has to deal with someone that's part of an organization that doesn't like them because of their identity. Whoa, you got guys who are part of racist organizations policing a community that's over 50% minority? Hell no. And by the way...
Yeah, it's called the Ferguson Police Department.
Yeah, I mean, you got that too, right? But this one is clear as day. The guy on video says, yes, I am a racist, kith and kin and all that stuff, right? The second part of it is post-Trayvon Martin society. Like, it was bad before we knew about Trayvon Martin. It was always bad when we had racist cops overseeing black neighborhoods. And that was not a thing that happened after Trayvon Martin. It's not like, oh, I got an idea. Let's put racist cops where black people are. Yeah. And we've had that throughout our whole history.
Yeah, we had the statement obviously from Anniston, but I hope that they will ask some follow-up questions like, yeah, you say that he doesn't speak for the department, but he was saying that his superiors in the department
we all think that way.
Say that we think like that. Are you going to be reviewing the past, the social media activity, all of that of all of your other officers? And then, by the way, every surrounding community, why don't you do the same thing? Because I have a feeling it's not just one hot spot of intense mid-century Euro racism in this in Alabama there. And I looked into the kinism thing. And by the way, has anyone ever said kith and kin and not either possibly been Santa or about to lynch someone? It's just such a lynching sort of thing to say. But kinism, like you said, it was, what term did you use for it? It's Dungeons and Dragons, it's like that, it's goofballs. I think it's pathetic and cowardly because it's people who don't understand and appreciate science and don't have the bravery to stand up and say, I hate black people because that's who I am. And they try to wrap it in science and say it's natural to think what I do. You're supposed to only like people in your tribe. You're supposed to cast out outsiders. No, it's not scientific. It doesn't make any, like, there's communities all over the world where people are living together. You just can't do it. If you're racist, be willing to admit it. At least be fucking brave about your insane prejudice. Calling it kinism.
On the League of the South's website, they brag in Dogrell's biography that he's been a peace officer in his home city county for 16 years. And John's absolutely right. What has he been doing for those 16 years? If they're serious about this investigation, they should look into that. God knows the damage he's done in that time.
Yeah.
But think about it, so many people grow up and have their parents have these theories that are so old and outdated and awful, and then they grow up and they also carry a lot of those concepts. So my guess is, like, a lot of police officers and a lot of people in a lot of different fields who are dealing with different races and stuff like that have these deeply entrenched, stereotypes that we need to start figuring out a way to identify, maybe, because they shouldn't be in these positions of power where they can unequally arrest and hurt their people of their communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, there's a story we didn't get to about Nazi propaganda and how it lasted 50 years. The kids who grew up with Nazi propaganda during the war time, obviously the Nazi time, that they were more anti-Semitic than the generation that came before them or the generation that came after them. But it not just at that time, throughout to this day, 50 years later, they're just as anti-Semitic. It's amazing, amazing the power of propaganda. And 50 years ago, they were bombing black churches, cracking black people over the head for crossing the wrong bridge, had white and colored water fountains. People grew up in that era. You think they just magically got a new culture and sort of, adopted a new way of thinking? For some of them, yes. Unfortunately, for a lot of them, not so much.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the recent history. You're saying 50 years ago they were bombing black churches. Yesterday they're shooting up black churches, and God knows what family life he was raised in, or what communities he was learning his hatred in as he was growing up.
And we're back to keeping black people out of pools. We're back to beating black people in the streets, the cops, the authorities, etc. So
Post-racial.
some progress, but there's a long way to go.